The DJ cycle is relentless, right? Like, if you want to stay on top in this industry, you've always got to be present and visible.
That's Ben Rao. He stood in the booths of the world's most iconic clubs, from the Terrace at DC10 to the main room at Fabric, and released on powerhouse labels like Hot Creations and Knee Deep in Sound. In this episode, Ben reveals the real reason artists like Josh Baker and Max Dean are pulling ahead.
He did everything. He did his own parties. He did his own record label. Like his party, You and Me, like I played that party where it was 100 people in a school, in a church yard, like in a church backyard of an old church, you know.
Ben also explains how to leverage long-form content to get noticed as a DJ in 2026.
The long-form content is really like key. Allowing people to take part of your story and participate in your evolution as an artist. You know, storytelling is like the most powerful thing on social media.
And once people care about your story, the next move is distribution. Ben gets real about labels, what they bring, what they don't, and how to think about leverage as an artist.
And you really got to ask yourself, it's like, what advantage does that label bring? Because you can do 100 releases on like no-name labels, and that won't do as much for your career as one release on a big label.
If you're a DJ trying to break through in 2026, watch this before you waste energy on the wrong moves. All right, Ben. From the outside, the DJ world, it looks like it's all about visibility nowadays. In your opinion, do you think that attention has started to matter more than being a great artist? Or is that just how it looks like on Instagram?
Look, it's a really interesting question, and I ask myself the same question a lot. Basically, the way I see it is now there's several ways to break through. Well, there have always been several ways to break through as an artist. Like in the past, people broke through mainly through music or operating a brand, like having their own party, becoming the name of that party, the resident DJ of that party, and the party becoming so powerful, or a combination of the two, you know, where you know, the biggest DJs would have a party brand, and then they would also release music that's successful and then create careers. And the social media was almost like something that happened organically and because of the success of the music and the success of the brand. But nowadays, people who are social media first and then everything else follows. One of those examples is Fish Octagon, who was on our podcast, my Dojo podcast, like
Legend. I remember
ago.
watching his. Watching his.
And he's just like a middle-aged dude sharing his favorite music, you know. And he built a massive community, you know, from over 500,000 people just by relentlessly sharing music, and then, you know, that's, you know, got him the social media following, and now he's got a career. But even although social media happened to him first, it's still grounded in music, if you know what I mean, right? So I always say as DJs, we have two roles. We are curators of music and creators of music. So we curate and we create, right? People come to us for those two things, right? So they come for the curation because we spend a lot of time digging for music and finding music that other people will love, but they don't have the same passion or the same drive to spend the hours and hours and hours that it takes to find that music. And then we also create music, which turns us into artists. And because we do both of these things, people then come to us and they come to our social media. So the music always comes first. The biggest success stories that I've seen in the industry happen in the last sort of 2 to 3 years have all still been the traditional model. So the people that I'm thinking of as the biggest success stories are Max Dean and Josh Baker. So Josh Baker is a guy that released on my label Meta when he was literally just, you know, starting out in the industry. He had like one EP out. I might have released his first EP. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe he had one before, but it was one of his first releases for sure. He now has a residency at Amnesia on Thursdays, you know, which is probably the highest level that you can reach really in the industry, is to get an Ibiza residency. And, you know, he did everything. He did his own parties. He did his own record label. Like his party, You and Me, like I played that party where it was 100 people in a school, in a church backyard, like in a church backyard of an old church, you know. And you know, now he's in Thursdays at Amnesia, but it took him a good 12 years to get there, and he relentlessly did his own events, eventually going from, you know, small events to mid-sized events, then starting his own festival, hide and seek festival, that, like, you know, being on the verge of failing for like 2 3 years, and then eventually it just exploded and took off. Then on top of that, releasing music that like really resonated with people. So he had some big records, and the whole thing together created a career. So to sum up your question, is it all more attention focused? People complain about that, but I don't really see that. I see still that careers are built in very traditional way, grassroots way, where people have to just do all of the things that you need to do to build a career. One of my number one sayings is, you're not going to get around doing it all.
Yeah.
What does that mean, right? You'll probably start a record label. You'll probably release your own music. You'll probably start a party at some point. You'll probably have to organize your own photo shoots. You'll probably, you know, like you have to go networking and meet people. So you're not going to get around doing it all. So that traditional way of building a career still stands today.
I think, I mean, there was so many things that I want to unpack that you just said. Josh, to me, I don't know him, but I spoke about him I was on a podcast with Will Clark, who you are on a podcast with as well.
Yeah.
And we're talking about Josh from the outside. To me, you know, he embodies almost that sort of like modern day entrepreneurial sort of artist. Like to me from the outside, I feel like he's got it figured out in the sense, not just musically, right, but in the sense of how he does long form content, short form content. He's got his business side. He's got, you know, his TikTok stuff absolutely running. You know, the music that he was doing, you know, the deep minimal house kind of UK vibe, which really went big sort of like last year, 2 years ago, got really big there as well. To me, like, he seems like somebody that has got it like locked in. And it leads me to a question I wanted to ask you as well, which is, I feel like in a lot of podcasts that I've listened to, or just generally sort of being in the industry, you know, a lot of serious artists sort of feel kind of uncomfortable chasing attention, you know, because it sort of goes against sort of what used to be the rule. Do you think that discomfort is actually a sign that they're focused on the right thing, as in like they're just focusing on the music? Or is that something that they have to unlearn moving forward?
I see that very critically, and I would actually challenge that a bit, because there's a certain type of artist that doesn't try to seek attention or sees it as a negative thing. I think the whole new generation gets the game, as you said, like Josh, and you touched upon a point that I didn't cover in my previous answer, so I want to quickly touch on that, and then I'll go to the other point. The long form content is really like key, you know. Josh was really the first one that started doing vlogs, and Stassi as well at the same time. I mean, there's other DJs that started doing vlogs, you know, like also, but like really from the underground sort of UK minimal scene, nobody done vlogs and long form content on YouTube, and that just like opened the lens, and it allowed people to take part of your story and participate in your evolution as an artist. And you know, storytelling is like the most powerful thing on social media. And like even like commercial artists like James Hype, you know, they have massive YouTube channels, and long form is a huge thing of what they do. So I think that's Josh understood that very early on, and then Josh has also had like a really good team around him. Not something that like he acquired through like management or anything like that. They were just people close to him, you know, like the guy that runs the events with him, Kurt, is like his best mate for like, you know, over 10 years, and they've been doing events together for a long time. His cameraman is his brother, you know, and his brother wasn't the cameraman, you know. He was just like, hey, like I need somebody on tour with me to like film everything, or like we need to crack this media game, you know, like you got to learn how to shoot basically. And his brother just learned how to shoot and then started coming on tour with him, so he was really focused on that. I think going back to your questions, is like artists shying away from from presenting themselves that way. I think this was something that was really like an old school kind of mindset that people had. There's people like, for example, Ricardo Villalobos, back in the day, who never had a social media. A lot of the Romanian minimal guys that were like big 10 years ago never had social media, and they were like, oh, we don't play that game. And I think they made a fatal error because their careers lasted as long as their musical hype lasted, and now they're gone, and they're all gone. And they just play once a year at Sunwaves Festival, where they have their little annual get together, and none of them are on the international circuit anymore. They're literally all gone, And we had some big names there. The DJ cycle is relentless, right? Like, if you want to stay on top in this industry, you've always got to be present and visible, right? And if you don't play that game of visibility and you're not present, there's somebody else to take your spot real quick, and it's like, it's not just DJing and the electronic music game, it's the music game in general. Last night, like, I was just flicking through Netflix, and I just happened to watch the documentary about Take That, the boy band. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not a Take That fan at all. I used to hate
Yeah,
that shit
you
when
are,
it was
man.
okay, I admit it, I am. No, like, I'm not a fan or anything like that. I used to hate that stuff in the 90s. I was into like underground 90s hip hop, like Notorious B.I.G. and I was never into boy bands or anything like that. But I found it interesting to watch because it was a lens into the music industry, And they got to the top of what you can achieve as a manufactured boy band, like they're as big as you can get. And then, like, literally like 2 years after they split up, they all got dropped by their record labels. They were broke, apart from the guy that wrote the songs, I think his name is Gary. And all the other ones were like broke, and the spotlight was gone. And like, the music industry is so relentless. Like, it's literally like, when you're hot, you're like on top of the world. Everybody wants a piece of you. Everybody loves you. But if like there's a slight whiff of you, like things going sideways, everybody just jumps ship and moves on to the next thing. So for artists, there's this relentless pressure to stay in the spotlight and to stay relevant and keep releasing new music and to stay visible. Social media is kind of a self-empowerment tool that you have for that, because you can control how visible you are by how good you are on social media, Like, you don't have to have a record deal. You don't have to have media coming to you. If you're good at socials and if you're good at what you do, then you can keep the spotlight on you. But it is a lot of work.
What would it take to convince you that spending money to market your music could actually make a difference? Like, real difference? That fans you're gaining are intentional, targeted, and actually care about your music? How many monthly listeners would you need to see to believe it works? 10,000? 30,000? A million? Well, we're a group of artists who've built millions of monthly listeners using a very specific and repeatable strategy. It's worked so well that record labels and marketing agencies started asking us how we're actually doing it. So we turned that strategy into an ebook, which sold tens of thousands of times. Then we built an agency around it. And after helping thousands of artists grow on Spotify, we finally did the obvious thing. Turned it into a software. And that software is intelligent. It's a system we wish existed when we were trying to grow our own music. Music marketing doesn't have to suck. And this is how we do it right now. Check it out with the link in our bio. 100%. I watched a podcast, I think yesterday, with Jimmy Levine, right, the big music industry boss. And he said this thing about sort of like owning the pipe as an artist, especially nowadays, not just making the music, but, owning how it reaches people. So your career isn't essentially at the mercy of algorithms, promoters, or agents. For DJs, you touched on this in the beginning, that can mean owning a party series, a label, a media platform, lots of these things, you have done yourself as well. You mentioned that Josh has done these. Where do you think that maybe people listening who are, like you said, Josh, when he was starting out, yourself when you're starting out, what are some things that you think producers can add to build real leverage, today, to own the pipe, right? What
Yeah,
could
like literally just what you said. It's literally like making sure you're smart about your decisions about your music. like not signing record deals in perpetuity, for example. You know, like some bigger labels will dangle like carrots in front of your face, you know, to seduce, if you're successful, that is, and seduce you to like, you know, you get lots of shows with us, you know what I mean? Like, do this, do this, do this, like, give us the record forever, right? And you just never know how well a record is going to do, or whether you're going to write something that is, you know, will get a life of its own and be a hit for decades to come. So making sure that the rights return to you as an artist, that's like one of the number one things, you know. I don't know if you remember this in the 90s, but Prince had a phase where he used to call himself the artist formerly called Prince, right? And he called himself the artist formerly called as Prince because Prince was copyrighted and owned by like Warner Brothers, you know, like the label he was on. I'm not sure what label he was on, but like he was on a major label, and he was under like a 5-album deal that was just not very good for him, you know, and he had to go the path of sort of actually not using his own artist name anymore, calling himself the artist formerly known as Prince, to find a legal loophole to be able to continue doing stuff without them getting all the money. So owning your own pipeline has always been important for artists. It's always been a really important thing. The good thing about the electronic music scene is that a lot of it is DIY, right? It's all do it yourself. Like, you know, like if you're going back to the whole manufactured band thing, if you want to take that route in the music industry, yeah, like you literally make no decisions whatsoever about your own destiny. They're like, wear that, dance, sing that, you know, dance this way, do that, say that in an interview. Like, you have like no authority whatsoever, right? Like, they're literally like turning you into like basically this wage slave, you know. You'll get famous from it, right? You probably won't get rich from it either because they'll keep all the money, right? But you'll get famous and you can leverage that. But the good thing about like building your own thing and doing a DIY is that you own everything. And yeah, you don't have the leverage that you have that these big major labels have, and you don't have these marketing budgets and whatnot, but you can genuinely build something for yourself. Like, I always love seeing success stories that are like unlikely, right? And I look for these success stories everywhere, not just in my own musical genre. There's like this American hip hop group called ICP, Insane Clown Posse, right? And they make like they make this horrorcore rap hip hop, and they dress like scary clowns basically, and it's the weirdest, nichest thing you've ever seen in your life, right? Like,
Where did you find them? TikTok or?
I watched this documentary once because they have this annual festival called Gathering of their fans call themselves Juggalos, right? And they have this thing called they have this festival once a year called Gathering of the Juggalos, and millions of people travel from all over the states. And like I'm not into their music at all. It's weird as fuck. But you know, like you see like the fans, and they're like, you know, some of the worst rednecks I've ever seen. But like what I found interesting and what I found funny is that they were rejected over and over and over again by, you know, record labels, people powerful, and they just completely went sideways and decided to build their own ecosystem. Now they have like one of the biggest festivals in the world. They've been touring for like 30 plus years. They've got a fanatical fan base that numbers in the millions. And that's all just created in their own ecosystem, their own record labels, like even like other acts that are kind of, you know, joining the genre of music that they formed, you know, like building their own scene essentially, you know. And this is always what I say to people who want to like, you know, people that work with us with Dojo who want to build their own careers in house music, you know, is like, you know, like if you haven't got a scene, if you live in a city where like things aren't going on, you know, that's not necessarily a disadvantage, because if you're the first guy that builds a party there's going to be a lot of youth in your city that are also thinking, this is shit, there's nothing going on here, you know. And if you are like the first one that builds a party, you got like a weekly residency immediately, you know, and you can build something like yourself, you know. If there's not a scene for what you do, you start the scene, you know.
100%.
So
I
Yeah.
totally agree. I want to ask on that because, like, in several conversations, that I've had, it's very much feels like, at least, right? Like, especially recently, the sort of like the pushing for independency is becoming more and more popular. I feel like people understand far more nowadays, and artists, like, what a label can offer, what they can bring to the table. How, if you run a label, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
how do you make it attractive for artists? Like, what can you bring apart from the fact that I'm aligned from the obvious?
Yeah.
I'm aligned and I'm able to release on Ben Rao's album, right? That's a big thing, or an other artist. But let's take you out of that picture. Let's take the
Mm.
artist-led sort of labels out of the picture. Let's say you're a mid indie label, somewhere,
Mm.
I don't know, based in the UK. What would you tell these people to do in order to actually be helpful and sort of do the jobs that would actually bring in new sources of talent? Is there something that sticks out to you?
So let me just make sure that I understand your question right. So it's like, what do I do as a label to attract artists, or what do artists can do to come to be able to release on my label?
No,
What was the
what?
question?
No, the question is, because I feel like, I mean, labels have always had a little bit of sort of like negative press, right?
Right.
But I would say back in the day,
Mm.
just the thought of signing to a label was
Yeah.
great, because back in the,
Yeah.
social media, et cetera, didn't exist. But now you can do TikTok, you can build, your own party in your own city. You can build a lead list of all
Yeah.
different
Yeah. Yeah.
clients. So if you're not one of the big four, if you're not a Ben Rao led label, let's say
Right.
there's no artist backing, what actually can you offer an artist nowadays?
Oh well, very little, but that's you can offer very little actually. So the thing is, the reason why artists sign onto labels is because they're leveraging an audience that has already been built, right? So like a label that's successful, right, and that has a track record of releasing good music from good artists, offers an audience, a ready built audience for like a new artist, right? Or not even like a ready built audience. Maybe even have your own audiences just as big, but a different audience, an audience that might not know you as well. And then also it offers like leverage through association. So if like the label has a bunch of good names on it, and you're an up and coming artist and you want to be on that label, that means like, hey, I am of the caliber of those artists that have already released on that label. So that kind of shows my standing in the industry, right? And once you start releasing on label X, Y, and Z, and this is still a very normal path of artists to take, they got to release on the important labels, right? Then like all of a sudden people will say like, well, he's released on that label, that label, that label. He's considered to be an important artist in the industry because those labels have signed him. Also, labels offer artists something other than a ready-built audience. Some labels, or the most successful labels out there, are always 360-degree brands as well. So they're not just releasing your music and offering you their audience, but they also allow you to play their parties in their shows. And like the biggest brands out there, like Defected, are putting on something like 100 parties a year worldwide, and you can really like if you release like a record on that label, that generates guaranteed income through shows, and those shows, because they're high profile shows, then generate like more publicity in that territory. They might take you to the States, they might take you to South America. You're on a lineup, your name is on the billboard, and that just elevates you as an artist. So you are essentially giving 50% of your earnings away to a label because they have a ready built audience. Now, what do you do as an artist if none of those labels want to sign you? You build your own audience and you self release. But then also you ask like, what do labels have to offer if they don't have their own party and they haven't got a big audience? Well, they don't really have anything to offer. So I know like sometimes young artists are like, oh, I got signed to label XYZ, like unknown labels, right? And to them it feels like Yeah, to them it feels like a success because they got a track signed, but there's really no difference between self-releasing and releasing to like an unknown label. And you really got to ask yourself, it's like what advantage does that label bring? Because you can do 100 releases on like no-name labels, and that won't do as much for your career as one release on a big label, you know? So you really have to ask yourself, what does that label bring to the table? And why am I signing my rights away? But then on the other hand, you also have to realize is that probably 70 to 80% of artists never even recoup the costs of releasing their track, right? So you're thinking, oh my god, I'm giving my rights away. It's like, well, if you are still making your name and you're a nobody, like most likely it's going to cost the label money to release your record, and you're saving money basically than if you did it yourself, you know. So it's always a give and take. I feel like a lot of the labels in house music and in electronic music are run by very passionate people that really have a love for the scene, and they just want to release good music, and they don't really put profit first. That only really happens when you get into the really big world of major labels where people get really exploited and they get bad deals and stuff like that. But like when you're dealing with the smaller labels, it's almost always like, hey, we split the money 50-50 and hopefully you'll make some money. But a lot of the time you probably won't, you know, and you have your music out at least. Yeah.
Right. And are there some labels like in this scene that stick out to you, like in particular that maybe have like a great last year?
Yeah, I mean, there is there's always new brands breaking through. Like I would say that You and Me, Josh Baker's labels had a great run because like now he has a residency in Ibiza, and literally this is immediately for everybody, for all the artists that are on the label. That basically means now like, hey, like this is great because it doesn't automatically mean they're going to get booked for the Ibiza Thursdays, because Josh will also be under a lot of pressure from Amnesia to fill the club. You know, like Ibiza is relentless like that. Like there's many people who've tried and failed. You know, they get one season and then they're out. You know, bigger people than Josh. You know, like Patrick Toppings had a season at DC10 and then failed. You know, Hodson's 82 had a season at Pasha and then didn't do another residency after that. So a lot of really big names have tried and failed because Ibiza is that relentless. Doesn't mean you're not popular, but it means like, you know, the pressures of filling a club with 5,000 people, like, or 3,000 people every week is relentless. So for the artists on the label, it's now a great thing that they will be able to play that party, you know. But then also you have to make yourself a viable option, right? So they're not just going to come to you because you released on the label and says like, hey, we want to book you because you've released on You and Me, and now You and Me has a party in Ibiza. It's like, no, like you have to have a crowd, right? So, you know, that's again your responsibility as an artist to build that following. So another brand I would say is Next Up, which is Max Dean's label. So Max has really built like a tight-knit crew around him. Musically, like they have a very distinct direction. You can really tell like what is a Next Up tune. Some great artists on there like Tommy Phillips, you know, who's a great friend of mine. Max is a friend of mine as well. Luke Dean, super talented guy. So, you know, the Deans are really just pushing the envelope and becoming like almost like a sort of dynasty, because there's like the younger brother, like Joss Dean, is now taking off as well. So you got three Deans starting to dominate in this industry, which is
It's
mad.
crazy. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Like they're
And
building they're
I want
building a bit of a house music dynasty. Yeah.
Here's a reality most artists never get told. 60 to 80% of your Spotify streams don't come from playlists you pitch to or posts you make. They come from Spotify's algorithm, things like Discover Weekly, radio, Release Radar, mixes, all of that. So the real question isn't how do I get on playlists? It's how do I get Spotify to push my music? And the answer is something called popularity score. Spotify actually assigns every track and artist a hidden score based on how well it performs compared to others. And that score determines how much algorithmic exposure you will get. We spent years digging into artist data, analyzing over 1,000 careers, and we found that the biggest driver of that score is velocity. How many real people listen to your track in a short period of time? And Intelligent exists to solve exactly that problem. It's a tool we built as artists to consistently drive real listeners to new releases, spike that early momentum, and trigger algorithmic growth. That's the game. We just made it playable. I wanted to ask, because I have no idea about it. Like when it comes, and I'm genuinely interested. I think there's this party that Josh has at Amnesia.
You and me.
Yeah. What does that look like? So, how much is Amnesia expecting him to do a lot of like what does that deal look like between them? Is it split in ticket sales, or like what do these things typically? I'm sure you won't know the exact numbers.
I can't tell you 100% because I genuinely don't know. I've never had a party brand where. Well, I've done many parties before in my life, but never on that kind of scale, right? So I wouldn't be able to tell you what the ins and outs of a deal with Amnesia are. What I do know, very much so, what matters is a full club, you know? And like, I think, it's fair to say, like, I really don't know the ins and outs of these deals, so I don't want to say anything wrong. But I imagine that you get, a percentage of the ticket sales, you get a set budget, basically, a budget to put on your night, a budget to book certain names, and you've got to work within that budget. That budget includes, like a substantial fee for you, and you then, it's your responsibility then to fill that club basically, and to make sure that the bar is full and people are buying drinks,
100%. But it is like a situation where they will be like, Josh, or whatever artist, right? I'm only talking about Amnesia and Joshua because that's what we spoke about. But it is like, okay, we expect you to be, like doing the marketing, like it is like a collaboration rather than like, okay, we're booking you, Josh, you get a set fee and we're going to take care of the marketing. And we just hope that us having chosen you.
No. Like that, you'll have to have a ground operation. You have to have a ticket sales operation. You have to have a marketing operation. I know that. Like, I know that because, for example, Jamie Jones has for years and years and years and years, he's worked with a guy called Nick Yates. Nick the Chief. Shout out to the Chief if you're listening. So Nick Yates, is somebody that's run the ground game in Ibiza for like years and years and years, and he really started out like working for like a party called the Zoo Project, which used to be like in this abandoned zoo in San Antonio, which became a party venue, and the Zoo Project was like, he shifted tickets like no other person, he had a ground team, he had girls working for him, boys working for him, like you really got to organize that and know people in the scene, have teams that are like giving out bands ticket sales, because there's so much competition as well, and it's tough,
Okay, I had no idea about that. I genuinely thought it was like, okay, Amnesia's going to book a big artist, and they're basically going to give him a fee for playing that amount. Maybe, that he's going to get a percentage of ticket sales, but when it comes to selling, and the marketing, that's all going to be Amnesia.
No, but you're very much responsible for that. I think they help you with it, like, I'm sure that they help, and it is a collaborative effort because, it's it's in Amnesia's interest, or any big club's interest, that you succeed in what you do, so they will have their marketing team, you'll have your marketing team, everybody gets their head together, but like running the ground game and having somebody that's just makes sure that like this thing takes off is like very much the responsibility of the artist that gets the residency, because the club doesn't really want to do all of that stuff. They're like, we're providing the venue here, you know what I mean? Like, you make sure it's full, and like you'll have a booker that will book the whole season, you'll have to work within the budgets, it's a tough game, and many have tried and failed,
100%. And in general, like, let's look at Ibiza. I want to get your opinion, you're an expert. So lots happening this year. They've announced a lot of sort of new lineups. We've got Summit coming to Universe, I think. Okay, I wanna do some predictions from your end. What do you think is gonna be a hit? What do you think is gonna be a miss? Where do you think it's gonna be at this year?
Oh, it's so difficult to make these predictions, but like what I can say now is that like Universe is an old new club. So Universe, the venue has existed since the 80s. So it used to be called Coup, then it used to be called Privilege, and now it's Universe. Like obviously with that has come a complete refurb. It's a very different space from what it now. But this is all done by the Ushuaia, by the people that run Ushuaia, and Hai. Jan Pissanim is behind it, and he is really like a mastermind when it comes to putting like really amazing venues on the island, and really elevating the experience of like a venue. He took space, turned it into high, and sort of elevated the experience. Like some people prefer the old vibes. Like some people say like, hey, like what he's done is incredible. It's certainly incredible what he's done with Ushuaia, because this was like a hotel, and with a little beach bar, and he's turned it into like a major venue for big names, like for huge commercial names as well, that play there. So he's put them on the map. He's behind it, like and you have like American artists like John Summit coming over. Like I don't know how successful that's going to be. Like John Summit has a big following in the US. Like I don't know how big the following is in Europe for that. But then we've had other artists come over and do
You've
that as
got a lot
well.
of
So
people now coming to Ibiza from America far more nowadays,
right,
right? Like,
yeah. So like maybe that's a draw. I think the main
yeah.
contingency still is like Europeans, and especially like UK people are
Yeah,
like
that's why
that's like a
I think that Baker's gonna absolutely fucking smash it. Like,
yeah. Like if I have to, I mean Universe is, and even like a Universe is a vast venue. Like
mate, it's
yeah.
madness. It's
Yeah,
absolute
yeah.
mad.
And to feel that like is not easy, that
No,
takes a certain caliber. John Summit's music has that commercial appeal that I could see him succeed there, but even people like Fisher, were like at high, like I don't know where Fisher is in the new season, or whether he's at Universe or not. But
I
like,
don't.
Fisher, I think Fisher is the most comparable thing, but even Fisher, I think, is like probably more underground in the music than John Summit. John Summit has
Mm.
like John Summit can go from really underground electronic music to something that's really commercially viable and has like a pop edge to it. So I wish him all the best. He seems like a cool guy with a lot of energy. And like they're living their best lives out there. So I wish them all the best, man. I want to see Josh succeed. Like like Josh came and stayed out of me in Berlin when I released this EP on Meta, and we worked on that EP together. I helped to mix it down, and he was so like he was like a sponge. Like I was like a little bit further ahead than him in the industry at that stage, and he was just asking questions all of the time. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about that? And always like super switched on and very proactive. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for him, because what he's done is amazing. He's not only built a big party and a big label, he's built a big education platform as well. Like he's done, he has he's demonstrated um um like mastery and success in lots of different domains,
Yeah,
so I wish him
100%.
all the best, and I hope he succeeds. Long may it last.
Long may it last. And Ben, every artist, I would say, they each has their own sort of like competitive advantage, right?
Mm,
Skills in terms of mixing, producing, network,
mm,
the way that they tell their story via social media. I want to ask you a personal one. What would you
mm,
say yours are, and what are
mm.
maybe weaknesses you'd like to be better at, and why?
Oh, so like I think my competitive advantage has always been my creativity, and being able to just get things real quickly and become good at it. I was like a late bloomer. I was already like in my mid 30s when my career started taking off as a DJ, you know. So that also points to my weakness. My weakness is probably like procrastination and consistency. I've always have to every day fight inside my inner voice that's saying like, hey, take the day off, chill out, like do this, do that, you know. And then like there's this other part of me that's really ambitious and that wants to achieve stuff, and I have to just really keep motivating myself all of the time. But this is also one of the things that has become my passion now, because what I teach at dojo is not just music production. At dojo, I also teach mindset, self-discipline, all of that stuff. Because if you saw how I was in my early 30s, right, and see that I managed to have a successful career and, you know, build an education platform and have an international DJ career on top of that, and, you know, and have Beatport #1s and being signed to big labels like Defected or Fuse London or EastEnders. You know, like if you saw me how I was, you would have thought there's no chance in hell that this guy's gonna make it, because I wasted so much time, and you know, I was such a late bloomer. So it's really my passion to keep teaching people how they can improve themselves, because I managed to improve myself. So my weaknesses are still the same that they've been 15, 20 years ago. I'm a hell of a lot better than I used to be, you know, and I'm pretty consistent now. But the battle has to be fought every day. Again, you know, it doesn't come easy. It doesn't come naturally. I continuously have to keep motivating myself and go like, come on, do it. Come on, you can do it. Do it now, and then like rest afterwards, you know. And I know other people who just are relentless workers, you know, like my co-founder Garrett at Dojo. He just like, you know, he just works from morning till evening, you know. And like even during Christmas, I was like, hey, did you have a couple of days to relax? And he's like, yeah. He said like, it was really nice back at home with my parents because my mum was cooking, which meant I could work a bit longer, you know. And I was like, okay, that's how he's relaxing, you know. Like and some people are just naturally like that. I've never been like that. So but I always say weaknesses, our biggest weakness is also simultaneously our biggest strength, right? I'm I'm a relentless worker when I'm interested in what I'm doing, right? If what I'm doing stimulates me, then it doesn't seem like work. I can put in the hours, no problem. Like for example, I love investing, right? I'm a passionate investor in the stock market, and you know, I put in, yeah, I put in 4 or 5 hours a day, like, and no problem. You know, I will literally like go to the gym and have a podcast on about AI or investing for like 1.5 hours. And if you want to talk about that another time privately, we can. You know, I'm passionate about investing. I'm very successful with investing. You know, I consistently beat the market for many years now, and it doesn't seem like work to me. It's passion, you know. So I guess my weakness is engaging and working in the things that I don't find enjoyable, right? Like working through my emails, or you know, posting on social media and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, got it.
So yeah.
Privately, you've told me, because you know we've been in contact now for a while, and you said, you know, looking into the future, you know, it sort of aligns with what you just said. You know, you've got Dojo, which you've built up to be very successful already. You said, you know, you don't want to be touring as much anymore. I want to ask, why is that? What changed, like, for you personally? You know, everyone in the scene, you've played everywhere. Like,
Yeah.
what switch?
Well, you have a saying in England, a saying, "Been there, done that, bought the T-shirt." Right? Have you heard about the saying before? Been there,
Yeah.
done that, bought the T-shirt. So I've been there,
You've got
done
all of
that,
them. You've got all the t-shirts.
I got all the T-shirts. But like, look, there's always more that you can achieve, right? You can always play
Yeah.
a bigger stage, a better time. You know, play this festival, play that festival. But like, once you've been to a place like 10 times, right? Like literally, like the novelty literally wears off, you know. Like you know, is it still fun to DJ? Yeah, like if it's a great party, I still enjoy DJing, you know what I mean? The part that I don't enjoy is being on a long distance flight, you know, every weekend, you know. And even like, although the travel has become a lot more comfortable because, you know, I can afford to fly you know, in a more comfortable seat and stuff like that.
Well
um
said.
Yeah, it's still grueling on the body, you know.
Yeah.
And like my dream has always been early retirement and just trading, you know, like being like playing the stock market and trading, and that is my goal. It has been my goal for a long time. I've worked towards that goal consistently for the last 5 years or so. So it was like first I was like, you know, I wanna I want to tour less and have a more settled life, you know. Then, you know, how do I get that done? Because I want to have a business that's scalable and that I can run from anywhere in the world. That's where Dojo comes in, right? And then like the end game of that is literally you know, you experiencing this now. You're in Southeast Asia now. Southeast Asia is where my heart is, and it's where my heart has been for over 10 years, you know. Of every spare minute that I have, I spend in Southeast Asia, you know, either Indonesia or Thailand, you know, those are my favorites, you know, and that's where I will live, you know, probably within a year's time, you know. So I'm actively looking to buy land. I'm actively looking to build a home, like my forever home. And then, you know, I will run dojo from there. I will trade stocks, and you know, if there's some touring in the region, you know, like Australia, Asia, you know, I'll still take it. But I'm not going on long distance flights every weekend anymore, because, you know, I've been on the road for like 15 years now, and you know, it's like every DJ always tells you, oh my God, it's my dream job. It's like the thing, like, but like every work, right? Not every work is always fun, right? And the whole traveling part of things and the whole unsettled part of things can really take its toll over the long term. So I think this comes. I don't know. This is a good thing to end on. Maybe like I don't know if you have any other questions that I'm not trying to
I
end
do.
the conversation. Okay,
I
good.
don't want
Like
to
we can
invest
carry
yet.
on. Okay. Okay. No. We can carry on then. But
But
like
say what you want to
maybe
say. I want to know what
no
you.
no no no. I don't. I got nothing else planned. So it's all good.
One thing we learnt working with artists is that growth is hard to do alone. And that's why intelligence is far more than just a software. It comes with a community with thousands of artists, resources, and real guidance from real people who are actually doing this day to day. You learn how promotion works, you see what other artists are doing, you can ask questions, collaborate, and grow together. It feels less like a tool and more like a shared system of artists building together. And if that sounds like something you've been missing, you can try Intelligent now and get 20% off for life. Links in the description.
But what I would say is like this really is encapsulated in my whole life philosophy. My whole life philosophy is nothing that we experience is 100% good or 100% bad, right? So if we get our dream job, right, there's gonna be some shadow sides to that, some downsides to that job, right, that you don't know before, right? And the downside from DJing is being, you know, you live your dream career, you're playing music for a living, like, you know, you're passionate about what you do, but the downside is being uprooted, constantly on the road, loneliness, you know, because you're alone, you know, just you know, on the road constantly, physical exhaustion, you know, and having to resist, you know, like all of the temptations of nightlife, shall I say, you know. So that's the shadow side of it, you know. But then something bad happens to you, maybe something like, oh, like COVID happens, you know, and like everything gets taken away, you don't have a source of income, you can't travel, whatever. But what are the upsides, you know? The upsides are maybe to see like, who am I without this DJ persona? Like, am I, you know, like, where does my self-worth come from? Does it come from the inside, or does it come from external validation for being loved by lots of people? And that's something that happened to me during COVID. And this is another reason why I want to step away from the relentless touring and the DJ life, because I discovered, like, and this is like a sort of quite a personal thing that I'm revealing, but I'm happy to share it, is that a lot of the drive that kept me on the road was my need for external validation, you know? And during COVID, like, certain things happened to me. I had time to reflect, and my sense of self-worth started coming from the inside rather than from the outside. And now I kind of don't need that external validation anymore. But that was a big part of the fuel that kept me on the road, if you know what I mean.
That's
Right?
it's so interesting because I actually wanted to ask you, like, you know, there is this idea, and I think I'm stealing this from a podcast between Chris Williamson and I think Naval Ravikant, which is,
Mm.
the idea that success is driven by dissatisfaction, always feeling like where you are isn't enough, and while
Yeah,
happiness tends to come from wanting less, not more. And so I
yeah.
wanted to, like, when you look at your own career, but you sort of kind of answered it, like, do you think your success, like those 15 years that you talked about, came from staying quote unquote like dissatisfied? Um,
Very much so. I was so like, yeah, I swear to God, the most miserable I've been in my DJ career is when I had a Beatport #1 record, right? Like literally. So like this was happened just before COVID. I had a tech house #1 in all genres. I was a number 2 or number 3. I think Mike Bibi was still ahead of me, but like I was in the top 3 of all genres. Like to do that is hugely a big thing in the career. And literally the phone wouldn't stop ringing. My management was just like, you have 20 gigs in Ibiza this year. Like this is, it's gone through the roof, right? And I just played like this huge show in Chile in front of like, a couple of thousand people. I was the headliner, like everything that I dreamed of, and I was suffering from crippling anxiety, um, and there was something inside of me that knew that like this is seductive what's happening now, and if you roll with it, like it can become like it's like it could come at a great cost to your well-being, basically. You can
but
go
do you
down
think
that
you could
road.
have
Yeah.
arrived at that perspective without like first achieving success?
No, I think that like that I didn't really process that perspective. Like I got over the anxiety like a month later, and then I was just like, yeah, I want this, let's go, basically. And then COVID happened, and then COVID forced me kind of to reevaluate everything, and it was like it was a long-winded process which involved therapy, which involved mushrooms, and psychedelic experiences and self-discovery, to really unpack all of this, and like, chasing this thing, like, there's a wonderful movie on Netflix called Stutz. It's about Phil Stutz, who's this really famous psychologist that's written several books about this. He calls it chasing the snapshot, right? So the snapshot is like a perfect experience, the perfect career, the perfect house, the perfect amount of money, Once I get to that point, then I will be happy, basically, once I achieve all of this. But then people reach that snapshot and they say nothing's changed. Inside, I still feel the same. And that can be like beyond depressing. And that means you think your happiness is going to come from external things, like achieving certain things, having that amount of money, having that house, having that wife, having those designer clothes, having that car. But that's happiness doesn't come from these external things. It comes from the inside. And once you focus your focus to the inside, and your self-worth comes from the inside, you're not reliant on these external things anymore. And that's what happened to me. And it was really incredibly freeing, because before that, my mood was very much dictated to whether how things are going in my life in terms of my job, right? So if things are going well, I felt great. If things weren't going well, I didn't feel very well at all, And it was kind of this emotional roller coaster, because you just constantly like dependent on external events of how you're feeling about yourself, And like, even like social media posts, I used to hate posting on social media, because if things went well, I was like, on top of the world. It's like, oh my God, this post is going viral. Things are going great. I'm popular, whatever, And like, and if nobody gave a fuck about the post, I was like, oh my God, am I still relevant? Like, and I would question everything, And it'd be this emotional roller coaster. And now I just really don't give a fuck, like, at all. Like, if things go well, great. If they don't go well, just keep working, Like, all that matters is consistency, And I really don't look at the day-to-day up and downs at all anymore. Even in my business, January was like a slow month, And like our sales team was just like, oh my God, like January's been a really slow month. It's been quite depressing. And I was just like, guys, It's January. Everybody spend their money during Christmas. Everybody's been on holiday. It's very normal. You know what I mean? Chill out. Like, don't look at the monthly up and down. Like, February, March is going to be much better. And, like, don't let external events dictate how you feel about yourself on the inside. But it's taken me, and, revealing my age here, it's taken me 50 years to get to that point. So,
Yeah. But also, like, on that, I can't help but think about, and I don't want to press you because of everything that you've said, right? It's amazing, and I'm extremely happy for you. But I can't help but think about that 18, 19, 20-year-old who's just starting, who has the same emotions, who hears similar advice from parents, maybe support group, but he's still like, do you think that an element of that anger, that sort of like dissatisfaction is required to get to the fact where you say, been there, done that, bought the t-shirt? Like
100%, right? People who don't really have that hunger to like want to live extraordinary lives for what reason or whatever, probably won't push themselves to the extremes that a person that wants that will do, right? And these people go on to create great things, and they create great art, and they build huge brands because they have that dissatisfaction, which can be motivated by some sort of inner void that you have, and then somebody that's like quite happy with themselves might just be like, you know what, I don't need all of this. I'm happy with my sort of average job, like I just want to have a good, safe life, and that's also fine, right? Like I'm not putting, like, I'm not devaluing any of it, but like I wonder if there's a third way, right, where we can say like, I want to be very successful, I want to create great art, I want to build, I'm motivated by that, but at the same time you not make yourself so dependent on external factors. But certainly, like, I mean, I think there's been studies that said like, how many of the top world CEOs are like narcissists or have like narcissistic traits, and it's like a much higher, a much higher percentage than the average population. Do you know what I mean? Like, because you have a certain type of character that's driven to like,
100%. I think there's also like a study about them sort of like, being single, only children, and born in a certain, but yeah, I totally hear you. Yeah.
I mean, there are certain psychological traits that drive people to achieve great things, basically, and what I would say is like, I wouldn't judge these people because they're also builders, but at the same time, like, these people, I just hope for them that at some point in their lives, they arrive at a point of inner peace and inner satisfaction, where you're thinking like, gaining more, won't make you any happier, like, it's like, I wonder about this a lot, actually. Robin, some great questions here. I wonder about this a lot. I wonder what motivates people who've been in the spotlight for so many years, who've achieved everything there is, to keep on sacrificing so much to be on the road, like, I wonder why Carl Cox, is at 60 plus years old still doing residencies in Ibiza and still tours a relentless schedule, where he would have more than enough money then to be able to settle down and just live a more quiet life. And there must be another motivation, and then the other than financial, and like something...
I think it's kind of just, it's because of that snapshot, that snapshot will then always continue to move, and
and it always continues to move. Or also like like I like, look, this is not to be like super critical of like of people who are successful, but I truly believe that a lot of people, like, I'm sure of it actually, that a lot of people who are driven to have a career in the public eye, a public life, right, to become famous for some sort of level, do that because of some sort of inner deficiency and some inner void, right? Usually linked to their sense of self-worth, right? And they think the more they get the external validation, the more they have the inner sense of self-worth,
Do you think that's been inflated nowadays, where mixing. I don't want to say like a great mix, right? Don't get me wrong. Is
Yeah.
not easy to read a room. It's not easy, right? Don't
Yeah.
get me
Yeah.
wrong. But with all the tools that are out there today, and I'm not talking production. Production's also
Mm.
been made easier through other things, but I'm talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
like mix. I get the feeling. I personally, I'm around a lot of artists, a lot of DJs, but I made a very clear decision. Like, like, it would be so inauthentic if I were to
Mm.
ever sort of like, but I see a lot of people, a lot of friends outside of that who are like, yeah, I'm now start. Do you think a lot of it is this sort of new society that we've fallen into where it's
Oh
like,
yeah. Yeah,
where DJing has become
everybody,
so normal?
the
Yeah.
so society has become a lot more narcissistic, and you see like people who aren't like haven't done anything in their life, and they present themselves on their social media like they're some sort of star. You know what I mean? Like like every shot is taken perfectly. And they're trying to put out an image. Like how they present themselves. Like
But there is an
from
argument to the fact that that model has also kind of worked,
Oh,
that
I mean, we look at people who have built personal brands like that are worth billions, like
yeah,
the Kardashian family, whatever, It's built
yeah.
on nothing. It's literally built on nothing. It's literally like, look at me, and then now I'm selling you lipstick.
But the same thing happens
But
also in the music industry, and that like there's a lot of people that
yeah,
leverage that sort of like, which is takes me back to that, that first question that I asked you, like, is nowadays being an artist, is it maybe even more important how you build your brand, how you tell your
it
story?
is, without a shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt, it is very important. And you see, like I gave Josh and Max as examples for highly successful artists, but those guys were music first, right? So it was always about the music first. But then on top, they are really smart of how they market themselves, right? So the marketing
That's what I
wasn't,
think it really is. I think it's
yeah,
you have to be music first, but you cannot nowadays throw the importance of marketing. But like that is, you are a brand now. Like
yeah,
you really are telling a story on
yeah,
so
yeah,
many different forums. And the way that long form is for that really bottom of funnel audience. Josh talks a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
about not just the DJing, but also his business side of things, him running, but then on TikTok, for example, and on Instagram, the short form is a different story because it speaks to a different audience, and being able to understand how to talk to different audience groups on different
yeah, yeah.
channels is so
I
important to get to know that. Yeah.
So I always say that taking people on a journey is like super super important, and telling your story is super important. Like one thing that I've come across recently, which I found really interesting, is like, have you seen like when you're scrolling sometimes on Reels or whatever, you come across people who take you on a weight loss journey, right? And they have like 100,000 followers, right? Literally, like they have 100,000 followers, and it's like some dude, and he goes like, I'm like 500 pounds now. I want to get to 150 or like 180, whatever, like this is my plan for the next 2 years, right? Like you can check in with me like every week for weigh-ins, whatever. And like some of those accounts have 150, 200,000 followers. Like 200,000 followers is like a powerful thing. Like like I mean, I've tried to build a 10-year DJ career, and I've been at like about
You have the
50K
same thing in
followers.
music as well. You have the
Yeah,
day one until I headline Coachella, right? That's one angle that you can tell it. But there's also other angles which I find so interesting. For example, Zulan, right?
yeah.
Nobody, I don't know. I think she's released 3 or 4 tracks, right? I
Mm,
think she's great. She looks like a ball of
mm,
fun. Her
mm.
sets are amazing, but I had this moment when I was on the pod with Will where he mentioned her, and I was like, oh, she's the one with the football jersey, right? Like
Mm.
that is a completely intentional thing, right? To have, or Pausa,
Yeah, yeah.
wearing the glasses, and
And the
these are,
durag, yeah, yeah,
and the
yeah,
durag. These are
yeah,
very intentional. But like maybe
yeah.
they didn't set out to be like, okay, I'm gonna wear this because this is gonna become successful, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
people
No,
look at that and be like,
once you start seeing those things, you start noticing patterns, basically, right? Where like people do a thing, like for Fisher, it was his laugh and his comedy. Like does the guy find himself so hilarious that he walks around by himself into his mobile phone, constantly laughing loudly about his own jokes? It's like, No, it's performative. Do you know what I mean? He's like an entertainer. Do you know what I mean? He's a funny entertainer. Like, you know, if like you have a stand-up comedian on stage cracking jokes, you know, they're funny, you know. But like Fisher is like, you know, that his laugh and his whole thing is like, it's like, and I remember like once like I saw a video of him like early on in the days where he's just started becoming famous, and he was like, he didn't edit the video properly, and it was like him just like, oh, telling a story and then laughing, ah, ha, ha, ha. And then like he just went like, oh, let's do that again. And he was just literally like, you know, like, let's do that again, the part that you weren't meant to see, basically, you know, where like, this is take 5, right, you know, like
the hook wasn't good enough.
Yeah, the hook wasn't good enough. This is take 5. It's not a spontaneous video of him just, you know, spinning a yarn. It's like, it's part of a strategy. Like for a second, you know, it slipped and you could see, you know, like this is content created. I'm not knocking him for it. He's doing something that's very successful and he's great at it and people love him for it. You know what I mean? And he's a genuinely funny guy. So he's leveraging, his own personality in that way. But like, yeah, like having something, like once you start noticing these patterns, you keep seeing that again. For example, like, you know, like starting your conversation always like with like the same catchphrase, you know what I mean? Like that's like a certain thing. Like, you know, like I did this unintentionally early in my career and it became a thing. I don't know, like I don't think you followed me then, but I had this thing called the spinning chair, right? So I was just sitting on my office chair in my studio, and whenever I had a new tune to show, I would like film myself, but I'd spin around in the chair. So it was always like this whole 360 thing where you'd see my face, but you see like my whole studio spinning in the back. And the spinning chair videos became a thing. People started copying them. Like whenever the stairs start spinning, people were like, "Oh my god, there's a new tune," you know. And people would comment, "Spinning chair, spinning chair, spinning chair, spinning chair," and it became this thing that I did like for years. And people started imitating it. Like I saw other people doing it, and it was just like that's my thing that I start. Where like it was like a, you know, it was my football jersey, you know, like the spinning chair, like so. Where like people would always recognize that, and it's like, oh, like when you see that, you know something's happening. And to just kind of find one like unique quirky little thing that you do, could be something that you wear, could be something that you say, could be something like that is the hallmark of every successful creator on like YouTube and Instagram, is that they have a little quirk. You know, Fish Octagon wears like a dressing gown when he shows his music,
and without milk.
Dry Weetabix, you know,
dry Weetabix, I can't believe it.
And he keeps pretending to people that he's genuinely likes that, which is like, and it's just such a weird thing because like, it's like, oh, like I'm having a dry Weetabix while I'm wearing my dressing gown, and I'm, you know, like, you know, I'm.
I thought he actually likes it. I was like, this guy maybe is a serial murderer.
He told me he likes it. I just think it's a thing that he does, that he thought about. What is an unusual thing that's going to catch people's attention?
Doesn't he put butter on it as well? Like
yeah, he does. You know, so like I think it's just a thing where you can just go like, this is an unusual thing that's going to catch people's attention because
people are gonna
exactly.
It's like a hook, right? Yeah, it's like a visual hook where you sort of like, wait, what is this man in his like dressing gown eating a dry Weetabix out of a dog bowl with butter on it?
Yeah.
And then playing some hardcore drum and bass track from the 80s.
Yeah. And it's just weird, and it caught on, and
because it's so authentic as well.
He's very smart. He's very smart at like picking up on certain trends and picking up on like something that works, and then he will use that, you know. So there's a lot to learn from him from that, you know. Yeah.
I wanna move maybe sort of as a last sort of section into that a little bit, because you know, our relationship sort of like started talking about music marketing, right? And you're an artist yourself. You work with a lot of younger artists. You are someone who is on social media. You see a lot of things. I'm not saying that you necessarily engage with everything or want to do everything, but I want you just like, we're talking to people that are like the people who are at Dojo Music, you know, like the people who are 19, 20, 21, you know, they're starting out, that this is something that they're doing on the side. As someone who has been there, done that, maybe not necessarily as much in sort of like the social media game, but I want you to I want to test you to spit at those people thinking about like, okay, what do you see right now? You know, you see all these fan pages on TikTok. That's a strategy, right? You
Mm.
see a lot of sort of like, you know, people say, you know, take tracks, for example, from that are currently trending, do remixes of those, do that very, very often. Build an
Mm.
audience for maybe start a challenge like day 1, day 2, day 3 until I'm headlining Coachella. What are certain things that you're seeing marketing wise that are interesting that you would say to people, this is something I would like to sort of like recommend you to do? Um, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so I've really like my team does TikTok, for example, because I don't really engage with TikTok a lot. It's like just another social media platform that I have to do. I find it stressful enough doing content for YouTube and for and Instagram. Like for us, what's really worked is like some kind of long form content, you know. That's worked really well. But I'm not saying that's a strategy for every artist because not everybody needs to do a podcast, you know. But you can do long form in terms of vlogs, like Josh Baker's done, right? Like, you know, like this is my day, like, you know, like just somebody described it really to me. Opening the lens and showing people your journey is like probably the most powerful thing that you can do, you know. And you know, people go like, well, but I don't, you know, I don't have much to post about because I don't have any gigs, you know. And it's like, doesn't matter. Like, it's much more relatable when you're a normal guy saying like, hey, like I'm trying to make it, and then like once you start then having successes, you know, and you start celebrating successes where like, hey, I signed a track, or I got my first gig here and there, and come along with me, and you make sure you document that all. Like the people who follow you on that journey will become like really, really hardcore fans, you know. And just opening the lens and allowing people to tell your story. You know, I have a guy who's currently on my accelerator, and he was building his home studio. Like he built like a really cool home studio, you know. And he was like, oh, what do you think I should post? And I was like, you should take people on the journey of building your studio, you know. Like I was like, hey, day one of building my studio, and like, you know, like I want to build it. He's like, he works as a captain of a ship of a on a river, you know. So like he's a river ship cargo ship captain, and he wants to get out of that and wants to become a musician and a DJ. And I was like, that's a super interesting story, you know what I mean? Like he's a young guy, and he's building from his own money, building his home studio. And you know, every week I was like, are you recording your building studio build process? He's like, no, I haven't started yet, it's not finished yet. It's like, that's the point. Like you're supposed to like show like it's from not finished to like finished. Like don't just have a walkthrough once it's finished. That's not interesting. To like have a walkthrough once it's finished. Show them like, I have a shed in the back of my garden that I'm going to convert into a studio. Come along on my journey, you know. Like, so everybody can tell a story that's compelling. Even if the story is a normal story, it doesn't involve you flying around the world playing in front of huge crowds every weekend. Makes it more relatable because like you're just a normal guy trying to do this thing, and then you can celebrate every win with your community and also every loss, and it becomes more relatable. I think on social media we are making the mistake of trying to say like we can only show the wins and we can never share when something's difficult or something's down. But I think there's a whole new type of social media now, and this really comes from what we talked earlier with people sharing their weight loss stories. Like when they get a knockback and it goes like, hey, this week I put on like another 2 pounds, like, and I got off the track. All of the comment sections are like, hey buddy, you can do it, you can get back on track, we're all rooting for you, blah 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 blah, all of that, right? So what does that tell us? Vulnerability, right, is what people resonate with, right? You like putting yourself out there is what people resonate with. That's part and parcel of becoming an artist, is becoming a public person. So you got to get comfortable with that, right? So once you've made your peace of becoming a public person, just being a bit more vulnerable and sharing the ups and the downs will make you so much more relatable than just going like win, 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 win. You know what I mean? It's like no life is like that. There is no life that is like that. There is ups and there is downs, and I think being a little bit more real with how things really are is actually much more powerful than just showing that you're living this fucking awesome life all of the time, you know?
Yeah, 100%. All right, Ben. And then as a closing note, 2026, you touched on it before. I think you held back because you were saying that, you know, we're still gonna have a little bit more of a conversation. But You mentioned that touring is out of the picture. Well, not out of the picture, but on a
Oh, I'm still very much touring. I've just come back from Lima now, literally like just
yeah, I know. I
weekend. So
remember. I like.
I'm still touring, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to tour less, basically.
Tour
Yeah,
less, yes.
yeah,
Let me
yeah,
rephrase that better. Let me say, you're
yeah.
trying to tour less. Releases, is that, however, still something that you're very much behind and still want to do?
So I'm working on some music right now. There will be releases for me, but like my focus right now is not continuing to build my own DJ career, right, and releasing music as part of that. My focus is on helping others build theirs, right,
Right.
and teaching, tutoring, mentoring. I get so much satisfaction out of teaching now. So number one focus is building out Dojo, building out the label. Like our record label has just, I'm just absolutely over the moon of like how it's been going. Like we are releasing music for people who have never released records before, who are Dojo students.
Right.
And like the track feedback that we're getting is that we're getting support from all of the big names in the industry, like Jamie
And
Jones,
how are
Marco
you marketing
Carola.
those? So you're the one sending them to those artists. You've got those contacts. But how do you go
No,
about
we use one of the best marketing agencies in the business called Dispersion PR
Okay.
to do our DJ promo, and all of the big names are supporting, like literally, or Joseph Capriati, Marco Carola, Jamie Jones, Archie Hamilton, like East End Dubs, Cyrita, like you name it, like you like Gorgon
And that
City,
agency
they're
sends
all
the tracks.
supporting.
That agency makes sure that track is heard by those artists, or
Yes,
what?
yeah. Dispersion PR is a music marketing agency. Like when you get DJ promos as a DJ, like
Yeah,
they're like one of the big three in the UK.
got it.
So Chris Stassi will do his promo through them. Enzo Siragusa's Fuse will do their promo through them. So Dispersion PR is really, shout out to Julian and Dean who run it. They're really great, and they're very trusted by DJs. Like you're not going to get crap sent from them. Like they don't take everybody on. The music has to fit, and we've seen like really great success with support from across the board, and giving people those wins is what 2026 is all about for me. I want to like the focus is not on me anymore. Like I'm ready to pass the baton on to the next generation, and I want to make sure that you like whatever it is you want to achieve, you can come to us and we'll help you achieve that. So 100% of my energy is facilitating that for other people, and I have 20 years of industry contacts that I can leverage. Like just a couple of examples. We had people who were struggling to get distribution. We got them distribution. We had people struggling, to finish music. We got them to finish music release on our label. Now their music's getting played by some of the biggest names in the world. And really, this is where my satisfaction comes now from. Like, as I said, like I've achieved everything that I want to achieve in my DJ career. The next chapter is all about facilitating other people's success and getting them to achieve their dreams and their goals.
Amazing.
Yeah.
We'll close on that note. Very inspiring, Ben. It's a pleasure as always, and I'm sure we'll
Always
speak.
pleasure talking to you, Robin, and I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. All right.